Season 5, Episode 44 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I am Sam Fetterman. That is Jonathan Litzkin. Jonathan, how you doing today?
I am just great, Sam. I am great.
So, Jonathan, before we get into any of the games, you said you were going to write a rise and shine for tomorrow on something that's really changing college sports right now. Would you like to start us off with that?
Yes, I want to preface this by saying that, I think somebody said that, this is just one case and, it doesn't apply for everyone. But based on what happened, it sort of seems like it should apply for everyone. Diego Pavia, the Vanderbilt quarterback, sued the
Alabama Slayer.
The Alabama Slayer, correct. He sued for an extra year of eligibility because he claimed that, and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because he was in JUCO, he was denied ability to earn NIL for a year. So he sued to get that year back, and he won, which means that hypothetically, everyone that was robbed of a year of NIL by being in JUCO, or 2 years, because you can be at a junior college for 2 years, can get those years of eligibility back. Now, I don't know if there was any, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not sure if there was anything in Pavia's case specifically that allowed him to win that other athletes wouldn't be able to take advantage of. But from what I was seeing on Twitter last night, there were, a handful of names, important names in college basketball that could potentially return next year because of this ruling when we wouldn't have thought that before.
Jonathan, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that this makes JUCO a much more attractive route coming out of high school.
100%.
If you can go there for 2 years and then go to a mid-major and be a freshman at a mid-major as a JUCO guy, you can set yourself up to have 3 years of eligibility to make however much money at a high major. If you go to a JUCO, go to a mid-major, average 17 a game at the mid-major, and then have 3 years. Or you go to a JUCO and you're good enough to get to a high major right away. There's not a ton of them in JUCO ball, but I'm sure that there would be guys that slip through the cracks at a high major and are good enough to go to JUCO right away. And it makes recruiting JUCOs more attractive for those high majors, like if they have 4 years of eligibility. Frankly, I don't know how I feel about this ruling. I think, I'm not going to say it's crazy, but it definitely proves that the NCAA is just completely inept legally. They will, you can sue the NCAA on anything and you will win.
Yeah, and it's what we've been saying over the last, 2 years, 3 years since this whole transfer process and NIL started. The NCAA came into this with no plan whatsoever. And like I said before, I'm not a legal expert, so I don't understand a lot of the legal proceedings behind this and the language and stuff like that. But last winter, there was a ruling for the NCAA that because athletes weren't considered employees, and they were considered student athletes, you couldn't make them sign non-compete clauses, which in college athletics case was the 2-time transfer rule they had in place. So they clearly had no plan when these rule changes were being made, and now they continue to look like a complete embarrassment on a yearly basis because of it.
Jonathan, it's really just the case that every single time the NCAA gets taken to court, it exposes inconsistency in the way that they've gone after rules, because they had to just put together rules so on the fly that they didn't really have time to think through everything,
Mhm.
and now they're paying the price, and it's unfortunate. I have to think that the if this is going to be something that applies to a lot more than just one person, the NCAA will appeal for sure. But honestly, is it even worth it for them?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know if there's something special in Diego Pavia's case that allowed him to be able to win, but this is massive when it comes to player retention in college basketball next year and in years future. Obviously,
And
like
and
down
for
the
mid
line, it'll
majors
be more
too.
pre-planned, but
And I'm concerned about what that means for like low majors in high school recruiting.
yeah,
I think that it will make JUCO a very attractive option. It's essentially like you can do a 2-year post grad,
yep,
but
and
against better
mhm.
competition with better coaching and all that.
Yeah, it's you know,
Yes, this.
yeah, yeah, no, it's really interesting because it makes like first of all, what are these low D1 schools going to be able to like pick up? You're taking guys at lower levels, not recruiting out of high school whatsoever, and it's hard to build a program exclusively like that. But yeah, if you're a borderline D1 guy and you know you got offers from like SWAC schools, MEAC schools, other low tier conference like any NEC schools. If you're a Northeast guy, why would you go there as a freshman? Go to a
Yeah,
JUCO
I
for
mean, bet
two
on
years,
your if
preserve
you
your
want
eligibility, get better, and then you can go play at a school that's probably better than the ones that we're offering you.
I would say like unless you're like 5'10", bet on yourself and go. It's not even betting on yourself at this point. It wouldn't even be betting on yourself at that point to go to JUCO because you would preserve the eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jonathan, we've spent enough time on that. We don't even know what's happening there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such an interesting topic right now.
But we do have to talk about some of the ball that we've seen over the last few days. Let's start in Hartford, where I was last night. I know everyone was watching this game because it was absurd, Jonathan. What did you see in the UConn Xavier game?
Well, it's funny because yeah, I think the most notable part of the game itself was Dan Hurley's press conference, which it doesn't surprise everyone. But I go on Twitter and you're tweeting about Bears and among other things, and I'm just like, what is
He
going
had
on?
a night.
But yeah, no, I think this was like Hurley said it in the press conference, and I agreed with him. I think this was just a case of like a team in Xavier who shot the ball extremely well, and because of that was able to hang around on the road. I mean, you got 23 from Conwell. He hit 3 threes. Marcus Foster hit 3 threes. Dante Maddox hit 5. And, you go 13 of 24 from 3. That's how you hang and almost win on the road at a place like UConn. Now, I do think that like UConn dropped off a bunch last night in their defensive metrics, but I think that's probably going to look like an outlier. I think it's important for them that Hassan Diarra was playing more like a true point guard and facilitating the way he was. And it was probably even more important for them that they add guys that actually looked like alphas on the offensive end. Like their offense had not been bad, but there were fair questions over the last few weeks about like who is their go-to guy. And you and I were in agreement in the preseason that if UConn is really, really good again, solo ball is going to be a key part of that. And last night he was. You got 20 out of your junior and Caravan, who's supposed to be your surefire
He,
NBA guy.
yeah, he's the MVP of the team, Caravan.
And like I said it the other night, and I'll say it again. Like Samson Johnson should be buried on the bench for this team. Yeah, I know he didn't play last night, but I think like it's going to be it's got to be so hard to take Terrace Reed off the floor at this time.
Jonathan, I'm with you on the Terrace point. What I'm going to say is, like, I asked Sean Miller after this game, like, hey, is this like the type of offense that, like, when you put together this roster, you were thinking about? And, like, he's like, yeah, like, this is the type of. He didn't go out and say, like, yes, definitely, for sure. But, like, you could tell that he was thinking about nights like that where his team was just shooting and shooting and shooting, because this is a team built for shooting. This is a team built for scoring. This is a team built for guys that can get their own shot. There's so many of them. Conwell, Dante Maddox was unreal in that second half. He just made everything. Stepped to the line with 9 seconds left. 2 pressure free throws, made them both. Conwell kept him in it in the second half. In the first half, Maddox willed them in that second half with some of that shot making. But man, Solo Ball had some key plays. But UConn, you could see UConn why they're a championship team in overtime. Just eight possessions, and they scored on every single one of them. Mm-hmm. First possession, you go down, Caravan pops off of a screen, hits a deep 3. That's your ball game right there. Like, Caravan hit that, UConn kept hitting shots. They made free throws, 20 of 21 from the line. UConn did championship things yesterday. Like, that's the type of game that is really easy to lose when you're at home and the other team is shooting as well as they are, and they go up 5 in the second half, and they're not missing their free throws, and they're not missing shots, and they're doing well in a lot of categories. That's an easy game to lose. UConn did not lose. They won, and they won emphatically in the last 5 minutes.
And I also think it's notable that, like, UConn hasn't exactly started Big East play in the greatest of ways the last couple years. So getting out of here with a win is.
Did you see that part of Hurley's press conference?
No, I didn't.
Oh man,
they lost the Big East opener to Seton Hall last year.
5-15 in the last 20 conference openers.
Hurley or UConn?
UConn.
Okay, that's
5-0 in national championship games, 5-15 in conference openers.
So they've won more. They've won the same amount of national championships in that span as they have Big East openers.
Conference openers.
Yes, yeah, because the American. Jeez, what a time.
Yeah, some of those were
bad time, but a time.
Last time UConn had won a conference opener at home before yesterday.
The last time they won a conference opener at home?
Yep.
I'll throw out 2012.
2003. Miami. Big East Miami.
That's insane. Miami.
And then I saw a stat that I straight up did not believe this one. The last time they'd won a conference opener in Hartford.
What was that?
1992.
So hold on a second. You're telling me that
for what it's worth, I don't believe that. That has to be wrong.
So you're telling me that in 2003 UConn won a home opener.
Sorry, 1995.
In 2003 UConn won a home opener against Miami. They then beat Miami in the Final Four like 20 years later before winning another home opener in the conference.
Miami changed conferences, UConn changed conferences, and then changed back. Or technically everyone else changed and UConn then changed later, but
yeah, that was a fun one. Xavier's defense is probably going to struggle all year without Traore.
I mean, yeah, UConn had 7. Okay, UConn had 7 conference openers at the XL Center since 95-96 when they beat BC. 2000 Notre Dame, 05 BC, 09 Georgetown, 2015 Temple, 17 Houston, 18 Wichita, and then 2021 Providence, which obviously it was. Sorry, 2022 Providence, not 21. Obviously, you're not going to beat that team because they were the luckiest team ever. But yeah, that was crazy. And Hurley goes after Hurley. There's a guy on Twitter, and like that's like his big bit that like UConn doesn't win conference openers. Hurley goes after. He starts his press conference. I want you to unfollow anybody that tweets about UConn's record in conference openers. He is so online, like so online.
Hey, some coaches are.
Some coaches are online in a good way. Other coaches are online in a bad way. Let's not get into that. We'll probably mention that a little bit later, but I wrote a rise and shine on that this morning. You can check that out. You probably have already. It has more page clicks than anything else I've ever written for the site. UConn plays Butler on Saturday. Jonathan, I think it's time for an early Valley update.
Ooh, yay.
I know you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
I mean, what is that like?
Two big wins for the Valley.
So, start with Drake because that was the one that everyone
was tweeting about.
Yeah, Drake is now 11-0. They play the almighty Green Bay on Saturday, but you have a game in Kansas City against Kansas State, a game that is going to end up being like quad 2 now for Drake. But
I think it's quad 3 at the moment.
Regardless, like Drake leads by as much as I think 20 in the first half. Maybe it was 17. It was 25-8 at one point. I know that for a fact. And then Kansas State being the obviously more talented team, more athletic team, start crawling their way back. Hawkins gets going, Gasson gets going, as Kansas State should against a team in Drake that is very skilled, but not nearly as athletic as Kansas State. And then Drake, they find a way to force OT after it looks like Kansas State's going to win. And they're leading in OT. Coleman Hawkins hits a 3 to tie the game. And Bennett did a Bennett Sturts thing. Drill the 3 with 1 second to go to give Drake a win in what looked like a pretty... It definitely was not a neutral environment in Kansas City. There were definitely more Kansas State fans there. But yeah, no, like I mentioned, Drake is now, is it 10-0 or 11-0? I thought it was 11-0. CBS is saying 10-0. Regardless, they're undefeated. And, you had top 25 discussion about them. You have
there's buzz.
I started thinking about whether it was reasonable or not. I started thinking about like, oh, hey, what would this team have to do now to get in at large, which they probably won't, but they're undefeated at this point in the season.
They Vandy could end up quad 1, probably won't.
But like, here's the thing. How I'm still upset with like Valley fans. You have Drake haters, but like the evals of like these guys, I think were bad. Like people saw D2, they came from D2s, and I don't think people were taking these them seriously. I picked them 3rd in the league. I'm probably going to end up being wrong on that because they should be the favorite in the league right now. Not to say they will or will not win it, but this team plays a really slow tempo. They're tough to scout because of that. They have shooters all over the floor. They have a point guard in Bennett Sturts who, how many guys? I mean, how many point guards at the mid-major level are you taking over Bennett Sturts right now? It's not many.
I don't know if there's a single one.
So yeah, like I mentioned in previously, they're not super deep. That probably comes back to hurt them at some point in Valley play, but they play really hard in the defensive end. Sturts does enough for you offensively that to like both facilitating and scoring for himself, that their offense is like surface level enough. And they just 99 I shouldn't say 99, 97 times out of 100 they're going to have a better coach on the sideline than you.
Hey Jonathan, there are 4 players in the country. There are 3 players in the country playing 70% of the minutes at 6'4" or taller, 30+% assist rate, 15% or less turnover rate. Name them.
What was the height?
6'4" or taller, so Sturts counts.
Okay, so Sturts. By the way, Sturts is at like 99.7 minutes percentage,
Yes,
leading the country.
he's played basically every single minute.
Yeah. And they need him to.
Who knows? He missed. He played. There was 1 minute that he didn't play against Stephen F. Austin. That's the only minute that he hasn't played against a D1 team.
Is there another Valley guy on this list? No, he's not.
It's 2 HMs.
And then one other mid-major?
The fourth guy, 60% of the minutes. This Jackson Money at North Dakota State. You wouldn't have gotten.
Okay. So 2 high major guys?
Yeah. One of them is a first-team All-American.
Cam Jones.
Yep.
Tyrese Proctor.
Darian Williams, Texas Tech.
Okay.
That's what Bennett Sturts is doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's with those guys. Not to say he's as good, but you know.
Yeah, no, he's with those guys right now.
Yeah, and then the other win, Bradley.
Well, I wasn't done talking about Drake.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I mean, you kind of say like these were bad evaluations. Oh, they're D2 guys. Oh, how do we come to that conclusion? How do we come to that conclusion that, oh, the guy that won 4 D2 national championships recruited Ryan Hawkins and Trevor Hudgens to a D2 school. He doesn't know how to get D1 caliber players at a D2. What the hell was that thought? What the hell was that thought process? I can't imagine anybody thinking about that and coherent. I can't imagine anybody thinking that and thinking that was going to work out. Like that's a dumb opinion that anybody ever could have had. Now, I'm not sure if this Drake team is. I don't think they're one of the 25 best teams in the country. I don't know if they're one of the 35 best teams in the country. But what I do know is that they are very well coached. They can win multiple different types of basketball games. They can grind you into playing the type of basketball game that they want to play. And they have 5 dudes. Like, dudes. Mitch Mascari is shooting over 55% from 3. Cam Manwu does a lot for them. Isaiah Jackson makes so many plays. If only he can actually put the ball in the basket. And then Daniel Abreu makes a ton of plays as well.
It shouldn't be understated how much Manwu does for this team. Like, this is a top 25 team rebounding wise on both ends because of him.
One of the best in the country on the glass.
Yeah, it should not be understated how important he is.
All right, Jonathan, talk Bradley.
Okay, so first of all, mark your calendars. January 8th, Drake at Bradley.
Carver Arena
game of the year.
We'll be rocking.
That'll be the game of the year in the Missouri Valley. I stopped short at calling this a much needed win for Bradley, but they had lost to the 2 best teams on their schedule so far, and beating a team that is borderline top 50 in KenPom felt really important for them. And it felt especially important because they did it in like the typical, like what you're used to out of Bradley way, where, you know, their defense is completely stifling. San Francisco was 10 of 29 from 2 in the game. Like, Bradley plays good, has always played good point of attack defense, good rim defense, and you know that's why they've been, over the last couple of years at least, one of, if not the best defense in the Missouri Valley. This team, we had talked about it, Sam, is more offensive oriented, but it was great that they were able to turn back the clock against a team that has the dudes that San Francisco has. You know, Malik Thomas had 8 points in the first 5 minutes of this game. He finished with 11. You know, the in-game adjustments to stop the guys that you needed to. Marcus Williams has been really good as well. Was sort of inefficient. Didn't have a bad game by any means, but sort of inefficient today. It just felt like, and I like that. I know it took him to this point, Corey Thomas started this game for Bradley. It was something I mentioned when I wrote about this team that I don't know if Thomas will start right away, but I'd bet that he does eventually. He just needed to learn how to play in structure. And I think once when he's out there and he's not following and he's gonna foul more than you want him to. But if he can limit that, he's a really high motor, high athleticism guy that can protect the rim and help you on the glass and be really effective defensively. I think this Bradley team especially could use a guy like him out there more often than they need like an Almore Atlason because they have plenty of guys that can shoot.
They have so much shooting right now, and that's kind of the one thing about Bradley. Like, I don't believe they are this good of a shooting team. I think they're a good shooting team. I think they're a really good shooting team, but they are what 46.7%, 3.7% higher than anybody else in the country. How long does Zeke Montgomery and Christian Davis combine for 36 of 61? How long does that happen? But I thought they were really good defensively in this game, and man, Chips Newberry, San Francisco really missed him. They could have really used a guy in this game that can score at the rim just easily. Carlton Lingard did not play well at all, and that's kind of Carlton Lingard's problem right now. He's far too inconsistent. He hasn't really had his big games yet. The SLU game was good, but I have not been impressed by Carlton Lingard. Once we get deeper into the season, I think Lingard's gonna hopefully find his groove for San Francisco. If he doesn't, and like we are looking at this team, just like their backcourt is really good, but they're not gonna if they can't get anything out of their front court because Newberry's probably out for a while. If they can't get much out of Lingard, they're gonna have to really rely on Williams and Thomas and maybe even and Tyrone Riley too.
Yeah, I also want to note that for Bradley, Duke Dean is one of those JUCO guys that like potentially could get another year.
Feels like he's been there forever.
Yeah. If he's back, obviously, you're gonna take a guy who might be first team all conference back any day. But the other thing is like if those of you that don't follow like mid-major recruiting or at least Valley recruiting like I do, Bradley has like the best class in the Valley coming in.
I mean, yeah. And that bench is full of underclassmen that are really interesting too.
Birch is like a high upside guy. I didn't think Jaquan Johnson was going to play really this year, but he's been real good in some games for them.
Yeah, I mean, if you somehow find a way to get Dean back, and you have Dean, Birch, Atlason, Corey Thomas, and the recruits that you have coming in, and Johnson, obviously.
Yeah,
you're looking at another really interesting team. Although I think, again, I don't know how you replace Darius Hannah, but like that's a conversation for
next year. That's a that's a hope. Maybe hope Thomas develops.
That's not
he's not Darius Hannah.
Let's get
his brother to come play for you.
Let's come back to that in the offseason. I don't want to talk about next year when Bradley is still
too much
really good this year. They're 9-2.
Yeah, I mean,
got a matchup with Canisius coming up on Saturday. Oh God,
this feels like a 4-team race in the Valley. What do you think? Drake, Bradley, Northern Iowa, and I don't want to discount Belmont yet.
I don't think Belmont is on that level.
No, but like
they'll win 11 games. That's what they'll do.
Yeah, I mean, like Belmont's on the lower end of that spectrum.
I think
like,
I think Drake and Bradley.
I put them in that conversation before I put Murray State in it.
I think Drake and Bradley can win 15. I think Northern Iowa can win like 13 or 14.
By the way, props to Indiana State and Matthew Graves
Yes.
2-0 in the league, have won at Missouri State, and they won last night at home against Murray.
Yeah. Good start for them. Samaj Teal is another one of those JUCO guys. That's one of the best mid-major guards in the country right there.
Listen, like, they're better than I thought they would be. I don't know, like, if they'll sustain this. Like, they're projected 10-10 in the conference, but like, regardless of what their record ends up being, Teal should probably be first team.
Jonathan, do you have anything else on the Valley?
Big one for Indiana State coming up this weekend. St. Louis
St. Louis
Pharmacy.
Mhm.
Watch out.
I
Let
would
me just
not
let me real quick look at the slate. I know Valpo plays tomorrow. USC does as well.
just I'm gonna move on.
UNI's at Wazoo this Saturday. That could be an interesting one.
I'm gonna move on and I'm gonna talk about Georgetown, who got an 81-57 win at home against Creighton. The biggest win for Ed Cooley as the head coach at Georgetown. The second straight biggest win for Ed Cooley as the head coach at Georgetown. They looked really good in this game, both sides of the ball. And they did it without Malik Mack, who had basically played every minute in their last two games before that. They played, I mean, Sorber is a game changer on defense. He does so much. And Micah Peavy is too. So when you have Peavy and Sorber, like 6'8", 6'10", and those guys are flying around, and you get Fielder and you got Sorber protecting the rim, and you don't have to have Fielder down there. You can do pick and roll defense in a bunch of different ways. You can really bother teams with length that PV's going to bring, and especially if you throw Burks out there or Williams too. Man, this team has what it takes defensively. So much. I thought this team was going to be horrible defensively. Like, I thought they would legitimately be like a bottom 100 defense in the country because of the backcourt. And I wasn't sure about Sorber. But man, Sorber is an NBA. Sorber is going to be in the NBA next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like what we overlooked maybe a little bit with this defense is having Sorber back there allows, a guy like Jaden Epps, who isn't a good defender, but it allows him to be more aggressive. And because of that, Epps is like nationally ranked in steal percentage. So like he's forcing turnovers. And
yeah, this is a team.
You take a guy that maybe isn't really good technically defensively, but you tell him like, hey, go be aggressive out there, like try to force turnovers. And if you make a mistake, it's okay because we got this guy back here who will protect the rim for us.
Yeah, I mean, 24th in 2-point defense, 19th in turnover percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And man, we are looking at a Creighton team that has the same issues that it had last year defensively.
Can I say it? Can I just say it?
Go.
Pop Isaacs is not fixing this team.
Pop Isaacs is out for the season.
I know, but like Pop Isaacs being healthy is not fixing this team. They're just bad.
It's not fixing, but like he would help. They need him.
Yeah, I mean their offense would be probably better with him on the floor, but
they needed shot creators and in the portal, and they took like 0.75 of a shot creator in Pop Isaacs.
I watched the entire first half and a lot of the second half of this game yesterday, and I was texting some friends who were also watching this, and it's like telling them like Ashworth made a mistake, and it's just like if they text me like I feel like Ashworth makes a lot of mistakes. It's like, yeah, you kind of have to let him because they have nobody else that can create a shot out there. I mean, I focused in on Jamia Neal for a couple possessions on the offensive end yesterday. I have no idea what his purpose is out there. He catches the ball, like it takes two dribbles, like get in the lane, he gets cut off, and then has to like give it up. I really don't know what he does out there. Like, you think McDander has been good for them, but he's an off-ball guy. I don't think you want Stephen Ashworth as good as he's been, I don't think your best offense or best team is Stephen Ashworth playing like this on the offensive end and being the super, super high usage guy.
I am with you on a lot of this stuff on Creighton right now. Let's move on and get to another result from the past couple days. I was not able to watch this game either, but Oklahoma, Michigan, Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Watch the
What?
end of this.
Where did you think I was going?
No, I didn't really think you were going anywhere. I was just kind of
Oklahoma, Michigan. Oklahoma pulls it out 11-0. Jeremiah Fears 30 points. One of the best players in college basketball right now.
I think this is probably Michigan's most concerning loss of the season.
Okay. Why?
Well, you let it late.
It's their best loss by Ken Palm and their closest loss. Go. Why is it their most concerning?
So you let it late. Like you are looking at this at the chart. You had you had a 95% chance to win at one point. 93.
93.3.
So yeah, you had a you completely blew the game at the end. And I'm not pointing fingers or anything like that, but for the first time, like it felt all season, Michigan really didn't turn the ball over as much as they had been in this game. They missed shots. They couldn't put it away down the stretch. They shot the ball well from the line, but you going 4 for 28 from three is probably not going to help anyone. And I think you have something. You have a legitimate offense with Golden and Wolf in that pick and roll. That's really hard to defend, but I think they made some really dumb decisions, and I'm really not sure what Roddy Gale was doing on that final Oklahoma possession, whether you thought it was a foul or not.
I'm still not sure how good I think Oklahoma is.
Yeah, I think I saw something yesterday that their shooting gap right now is insane. Like teams have just been shooting terrible against them.
Yeah, they're plus 10% from three.
That's
plus 10% from the line. It's
like I don't really know. I don't really look at this Oklahoma team and I'm not really able to point out hey, these guys are really good perimeter defenders that are actually effective at contesting threes and forcing teams into tough perimeter shots.
I think they're good. I think they're a tournament team.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And they might only need to win 7 SEC games to make the tournament. Because you win 7 SEC games, you're 20-12. If you're 20,
it does feel like
you're making a tournament.
It does feel like they're going to go into conference play, all things considered, 13-0.
Yeah,
and
they have Central and Prairie.
This run to start conference play at Bama, A&M at home.
They could be 0-4.
Georgia at home, Texas at home. Yeah, I mean you could lose all 4 of those games. I don't think they will, but I think.
But I mean, there's also a good chance that they're 2-2 coming out of that, and then they have South Carolina and Arkansas, and they can be 4-2. Mm-hmm. They also get Vandy at home, which should be really winnable. LSU at home, which should be really winnable. They get Mizzou home and away, which is as far as home and aways go. Getting Mizzou, their home and aways are Mizzou, Texas, and who's the third?
Mizzou, Texas, and
A&M. A&M. That's a tough one.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Penn State volleyball just won the national semifinal against Nebraska in a reverse sweep. That was a fun game to watch.
Did Pitt play Louisville yet?
Louisville won.
Oh, my friend's going to be pissed.
So, Louisville, Penn State in the national championship. Who do you got?
Give me Louisville.
Yeah, it's at home for them.
They're playing in Louisville.
Yeah, give me
Sort
the
of.
cards. L's up. Louisville volleyball is going to win the national championship. Florida and North Carolina. I think this game kind of confirmed like what I've been trending towards for both sides.
Explain.
Like,
because I think it could. I think this game said more about Florida than it did about UNC.
That this Florida team is an absolute inferno. They can score a million points in like 10 seconds, pound the glass, play fast, shoot the three, just do pretty much everything on the offensive end. And that this North Carolina team has just doesn't have it. Like
Florida team is top 10 in Ken Palm. They're top 10 in offensive efficiency. They have a top 25 defense in Ken Palm. Projects them to go 11-7 in the SEC.
Okay. Florida's 11-0. This was their best win by Ken Palm. It was their first win that wasn't by 15 points, but like they were winning this game by a lot for a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina went on a big run. Florida closed the crap out of this game, though. Denzel Aberdeen played well. Elijah Martin shot 2 for 12 from 3 and still played well. Will Richard is so good. Like Will
took the jump. We've been waiting. He was good last year too,
but he's so much better this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think like Walt took a jump, but like the big jump on this roster, at least for me, like it just feels like Will Richard is. The numbers don't show it really. Like
no, but it just feels like he's playing so much better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that like these last 2 games have been big games for him, and like those are 2 of their biggest games. But like he's been really good for them. I think just doing more, he's scoring more points, higher shooting percentage, more rebounds, more assists, more steals, way more steals. Their 3-point percentage is a little bit down, but we saw that yesterday come through. And
he's
this backcourt
better at the rim.
Yeah, this backcourt is one of the best in the country. And when
you be the best in the country,
I'm taking Iowa State, but
fair. I think those are the 2.
But I mean, you got 3 guys in that backcourt, 120. They're above 20% usage and above 120 offensive rating. Wait, no, Condon is not in the backcourt. I am done.
I don't think we need to have this ultra serious conversation about UNC either, by the way.
I mean, I just don't think UNC is all that good. Like, I think they're probably going to make the tournament. They're probably going to be an 8 seed. They're going to win their first round game. Everyone's going to pick them to beat the 1 seed because they're somehow going to draw the 4th 1 seed, and they're going to lose that game by 11.
They have UCLA next weekend.
I will be there.
No matter what.
No, I will be there.
I know. If they win the UCLA game, I think everyone's going to do a lot of course correcting on them because they're still going to win like 13 or 14 ACC games because the conference is so bad.
Okay, if they win 13 ACC games after winning that, they are 21-10 going into the ACC tournament.
It doesn't even like.
That's in this ACC.
They win 13 ACC games and win that final game against Duke, and they're like going to be an 8 or 7 seed.
Yeah, and like, but this was a top 10 preseason team.
Yeah, I think everyone has pretty fairly adjusted their expectations of them. The front court stinks. I still stand by the fact that they have 4 really good guards, and I probably wouldn't want to see them in my region in the NCAA tournament.
All right. Moving forward, Jonathan, any other games you want to discuss?
Were there any other notable Big East results we didn't get to?
Not really anything
Marquette
notable.
Butler,
Marquette beat Butler, but like we knew that was gonna happen.
That was that game was really weird, by the way. I don't
Butler
know
winning.
I don't know if you saw. Marquette took like 28 more shots in this game.
Oh, hold on. 40 burgers. Donovan Dent in a win for New Mexico. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know he had that in him. Like, I don't think, when I think of Donovan Dent, I don't think of a guy that is just going to try and go and drop 40. I know he dropped 30 earlier this year. He dropped 30 once last year. But, like, that's not his game. Like, his game isn't being this inferno scorer, because he's not, because like he doesn't shoot threes. He doesn't take threes. But he gets to the line and he makes his free throws. And he creates so much for himself based on how much he's able to create for others. So maybe maybe I shouldn't be that surprised. But Donovan Dent is one of the best point guards in college basketball. And then, I mean, just winning that game, super impressive. There without True Washington. I know it's a home game. I know it's at the Pit, and I know it's really difficult for teams that aren't from that region to go play at the Pit. It's really difficult for teams that are from that region to go play at the Pit. But 16 offensive rebounds, a big Nelly Jr. Joseph game. New Mexico needed that win. They really did, and they got it. And that's a tough result for VCU. And the A-10, all of a sudden, a couple days ago, after Saturday, we were really talking about how good the A-10 looked. And Loyola goes down, and you lose Kaimeni Hyunsu for a long period of time. You lose Justin Moore for the season, and they lose to San Francisco. And then VCU goes into the Pit, has a big opportunity, and doesn't take it. Now that league looks a decent amount weaker than it did after Saturday night, Jonathan.
Yeah, the one who, if VCU was in play for an at-large, I didn't really think Loyola was, because their metrics weren't good enough. But
VCU's not going to have
every bad loss, or not even bad loss, but like the losses that the A-10 takes hurts Dayton too, because Dayton needs these teams to be good.
Also want to shout out Trayson Eaglestaff, a 40-burger himself, as Alabama beat North Dakota in Grand Forks. That was a really good basketball game. North Dakota almost won.
Your tweet about him aged very well.
Yeah. Eaglestaff is awesome. He's I don't want to say he's this year's Frankie Fiddler, because he's a different player. But like in the sense that this is going to be a guy that goes up to the high major level, billed as a legit scorer. I think he has the ability to be a high major wing next year. And I know that Fiddler hasn't been great for Michigan State. I think Eaglestaff is a better shooter. Just that's where I am. Fiddler did more. Eaglestaff's a better shooter.
Real quick, want to point out something. St. John's beat DePaul by a lot a couple nights ago. The result isn't what I want to point out, though. St. John's has been getting better, and one of the reasons for that, and it's kind of gone under the radar, is Kadary Richmond is kind of finding himself again. He had 18, 8, 4 against Harvard. He had 13, 6, and 4 and 3 blocks against Kansas State. And then a couple nights ago against DePaul, he has 18 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks. So that version of Kadary, where he's not even really a high usage guy, and he doesn't need to be because RJ Lewis has been so good. But St. John's getting a better version of Kadary than what they got in the first month of the season is important.
Jonathan St. John's is 11th in KenPom. They have a top 20 offense and a top 15 defense. They play Providence at the Dunk tomorrow night. That's going to be fun.
And they're actually not completely awful from 3, which everyone kind of thought they would be.
And I will, though, say Brady Dunlap is out for a little bit of time. That could be tough for their shooting, but he hasn't even been shooting that well.
Nah,
Need to
the
put up
guys.
the
I mean, Wilshire's been hitting threes.
Davon.
Davon, yeah.
Like they're just not a high volume 3-point shooter.
No, and they really don't have to be.
Yeah, because they can get to the rim.
They're not drawing a lot of fouls. I wonder if that changes.
PJ Haggerty is looking like an All-American. Just
Yes, he is.
Every game it feels like he
Currently
goes
fifth
out there
in the Ken Pom Player of the Year race.
Yeah, he's been awesome. That was a huge pickup for Memphis. Who again, I'm still not convinced about Memphis, but grit out that win at Virginia. Good stuff. Obviously, you would like to beat Virginia by more, but
yeah, there's always going to be a but with Memphis, but their highs are really high.
Some stuff I saw tonight. Ben Laketon for UC Irvine kind of took over that game late.
How much better has he gotten? Holy cow!
I look at UC Irvine and I just see a team that I didn't like. First half of this game, they were really kind of letting Belmont dictate the game. Belmont was being decisive, and I don't think Belmont stopped being decisive in the second half. I just think UC Irvine took it to them. They were 23-4 on the glass, I think, in the second half. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I don't think Belmont did the things tonight that you need to do to close out a game. You know, they let UC Irvine get a bunch of offensive rebounds. They got like you said, they got killed on the glass. Irvine got to the free throw line a ton. Belmont didn't. So, I don't think this is a bad loss by any means for Belmont, but yeah, it definitely was one that they let slip.
I also watched a little bit of Middle Tennessee Lipscomb. We're actually going to have Lenny Acuff on the podcast on Monday. Maybe not the best result for his side tonight, but they finished they're going to finish non-conference after presumably beating a non-D1 on December 29th with an 8-5 record in the top 100 of Ken Pom. Wins over Wofford and Chattanooga. Chattanooga win on the road. They played, man, that's a tough loss to swallow at a rival in Middle Tennessee tonight.
Yeah, no. And
they got a heck of a performance from Jacob Ognjusevich. He carried this team back into the game. They were down 7 or 8 points for a lot of this game, 10 points at one point in the second half. I really felt like they were kind of going away, and then they just kept going to Ognjusevich. Those jumpers and those post touches. He was unstoppable. Assam Mustafa had no answer for him for most of this game, but MTSU had just enough to stay and win.
Lipscomb's really a couple points away from like national media talking about them. As like they're rightfully right now the favorite in the ASUN, and they were in the preseason. But like, think about this: you lose to Belmont by 1, you lose to Western Kentucky by 5, you lose to Middle Tennessee by 2. You get 2 of those 3, and they're more than just like a good ASUN team.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan. We will just a couple rapid fire things. Do you have any thoughts on any of the games coming up this weekend?
Yeah. I'm calling Mizzou, Illinois this weekend in St. Louis. I'm really interested to see how watch the game just from, not even just call it, but just like watch the game from a basketball perspective, like a basketball, an analysis perspective, because both of these teams run a ton of ball screens. You're going to see Robinson and KJ and Bates. They all operate really well in ball screens, and both defenses' game plans are going to be heavily focused on that. Mizzou's guards can really get up in pressure. We saw that against Kansas. And so I really wonder if this is a good matchup for Mizzou, who got killed by him last year.
My big thing that I'm going to be looking at this weekend: Purdue and Auburn. What's Janai Broom's status? Is he going to be able to play? If not, how will Auburn kind of cope without him? That's the best player in the country right there that you'd be losing. And if so, how long would he be out for? Another game that I'll have an eye on, Marquette Xavier.
Mhm.
Xavier coming off a loss, but looked really, really good in that second half. We talked about that earlier. Marquette goes on the road. Cintas is going to be rocking. Can Xavier get that first big win of the season? That like they're 8-4, but they don't have any big wins, and they need to start building the resume. What better chance to start building up a resume than beating the best team in your conference at home before New Year's?
Yeah, I got my eye on Mississippi State, Memphis. You know, we mentioned it. Memphis lost to Louisiana Tech a couple weeks ago, and you know, people started to hit the panic button
Arkansas
a little because, huh?
They lost to Arkansas State.
Sorry, Arkansas State, not Louisiana Tech. Keep thinking about tomorrow. Yeah, they lost that game to Arkansas State, who's a good team, but you know, they lost that game, and people really started pointing out, hey, like Memphis only has so many opportunities left. Then they go out and beat Clemson, they beat Virginia. Here's another good opportunity against the Mississippi State team that might end up being a quad one game for you at home. And then you have Ole Miss the following weekend. But this Miss State team has like completely shifted the philosophy this year. They're not nearly as good defensively. Still not bad, but they're more offense focused. Their guards are fantastic. They do have really good defensive pieces still, but even a guy like Cam Matthews, I think, has taken a step forward on the offensive end. And so I think this is going to be a really interesting chess match at the FedEx Forum in a game that, like, Memphis, you know, they could afford a loss here, but you know, this game could end up being the difference between like a seed line for them with how their conference is right now.
Any thoughts on any of the games at the Garden?
I don't know how UNC is going to be able to guard Bilodeau and Daly.
I don't know. I don't know how they're going to be able to guard anything.
Like UNC should probably play like the more desperate team here because they are. But UCLA also won a game against a pretty desperate team last weekend.
I mean, UNC was the last time UNC walked into the Garden, they were a pretty desperate team because they'd had those 4 losses that they picked up early in the season: the Iowa State, Alabama, Indiana, Virginia Tech, and they walked out with a big time overtime win against Ohio State. That Ohio State team had just come off that home win against Rutgers. Someone hit a buzzer beater in that game. Tanner Holden hit a buzzer beater.
Yes, you're right. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a name I hadn't thought about in a little while.
I was going to write about him that day, but he didn't do anything. Then Ohio State sucked. Like that Ohio State team came into that game top 20 in KenPom. You forget Ohio State was number 9 in KenPom on January 8th with a 10-4 record that year.
Yeah, and then they lost like every conference game by like 1 possession.
They went 5-15 in the Big Ten and then made the Big Ten semifinal.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
But this year's Ohio State team against Kentucky, I am unreasonably excited for this Kentucky team. Like, just I want to. Kentucky, Florida on Jan 4 is already circled on my calendar. What time is that game? Oh, it's an 11 a.m. game. I'm gonna miss it. It'll be on my computer screen while I'm at Fordham that day for sure. Yeah.
You know, big game tomorrow night. While everyone is focused on the in-state Indiana matchup in football, you should keep your eyes on the in-state Ohio matchup in basketball. Yeah. Cincinnati versus Dayton. You know, Cincinnati, I think, is a team that is good, but still probably looking to prove it. They won the crosstown shootout last weekend, but they're still searching for that big win that everyone takes part of. I don't know if Dayton is going to be the win that everyone, takes notice if Cincinnati wins it, but I think these are two good basketball teams, and it should make for a pretty exciting game.
And I think that going into conference play, 10-1 would be big for them. If it would basically say, all right, go 500 and you're going to get an 8 seed.
Yeah, they're non-con, obviously not super stacked. So,
all right, Jonathan.
Any thoughts on Syracuse?
No. Quickly before we go, tomorrow is the college football playoff. This is a college basketball podcast, which means it's a college sports podcast.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we talked about volleyball.
Who's gonna win?
The college football playoff or just the game tomorrow?
The first round games. You're the guy that watches this stuff.
First round games, I will go Penn State over SMU. I will go Texas over Clemson. I will go Indiana tomorrow night over Notre Dame in South Bend. And what game am I missing? Ohio State over Tennessee.
I think I'm with you on all 4 of those.
Mm-hmm.
I
have a feeling about Indiana tomorrow. I don't know. I've never really bought into
the vibes of this Indiana team are too high to not win a game.
Yeah, and I don't think that Notre Dame is talent level like Ohio State, where they'll just overwhelm them.
No, they're not. And Sig is maybe one of the 5 best coaches in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison and I usually do a coach rankings at the end of the year for college football.
Definitely a top 10 coach.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Google me, I win. What a line!
Dude,
what a
great line.
What a line! There's another coach that badly wants to use that line, except when you Google him, he doesn't win. All right, Jonathan,
the first thing that comes up is a website to a Sportspedia page.
All right, Jonathan, you want to take us home?
If you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about us talking about women's volleyball, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, yep, go Cards, baby. You came to the right place.
Hot wife, healthy kids.
This is season 5.
I wonder if the Louisville volleyball coach has a hot wife and healthy kids.
This has been season 5, episode 44 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Stealers. We'll see you next time.